Now, a movie that is rated at 26% to me, I would think would be a really bad movie. And but I didn't feel that way when I saw that movie. I enjoyed the movie. If you go to a site and let's say you're thinking about going to see a movie and you go to a site and it has a low percentage, does that affect your thoughts going into the movie? Like, can you still go to that movie and look at the movie with an open mind, or will that, skew your mindset as far as watching that movie? The reason why I think about this is that there's a movie that I saw last year. I want to say is 2019 was when I saw it. Very popular movie. And if you go to Rotten Tomatoes, that movie has a very low score. Now, the way I do things as far as reviews, when I know I'm going to see a movie and I'm interested in a movie and stuff like that, not a situation where I don't have any idea what I want to watch and I'm searching for things to watch. But let's say there's a movie coming out. I already know I want to see this movie. Usually, the way I do things is I will try not to read any reviews, listen to any podcast where they give their overall synopsis. I try not to look at any tweets or anything like that about that movie, because when I go in to see that movie for the first time, I want to go in with my own thoughts, with my own minds. I don't want to have nothing skewing what I'm thinking about this movie or skewing my enjoyment of this movie. So I usually try not to look at any of this stuff until after I've seen the movie. When I go see a movie like that, when I come back, usually the first thing I'll do is check those scores, check the reviews. I'll listen to podcasts that do reviews. I'll watch YouTube videos that do reviews because I'm curious. I want to know if others have the same thought on that particular film or TV show that I do, or if some of the complaints that I may have had are other people seeing the same thing. Maybe I'm thinking wrong, or maybe, everybody saw the same thing I saw. So, but what I'm wondering about is if you looked at that information, if you read Rotten Tomatoes before you went and saw a movie, will that skew your thoughts? And one of the big things that I think is a good indicator of that for me is the movie Gemini Man by Will Smith. Now, Gemini Man, it's like a sci-fi action film starring Will Smith. One special thing about that movie was that it was shot in 120 megahertz frame rate, a really high frame rate. Most movies are shot at about 24 frames per second. So this was a really huge difference as far as how this movie was shot and how it was shown on the screen. And some movie theaters, if you went to see this movie, they didn't even have the capability of displaying it at that frame rate. The movie theater that I went to did happen to have that capability, and it was a big difference. It was something that I had to get used to as I was watching. And I don't think it made the film any better or anything like that. One thing it did do was it made the picture really, really crystal clear, almost like if you were looking through looking in a mirror or something, like you were actually in the place, in the area or environment, instead of watching it on the screen. It did help to give you that type of feeling. But as far as having an effect on my overall movie, it didn't change much for me. But I know that a lot of people found it distracting. They found it distracting. They, just aren't used to looking at movies that is, shown at such a high frame rate that it was distracting for a lot of people. But other than that, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a good action movie. I like the story. Will Smith was really good in it. They had that thing where they did a computer generated version of himself that was a younger version of himself. And I thought that was all interesting, and I enjoyed the movie. But if you look at the Rotten Tomato scores for that movie only has about a 26%. Now, if you look at the audience score, that's the one that's right there with the popcorn. The popcorn right there, that's the audience score, and that's the score where they tally up just regular Joe Blow that's visiting the site. They rate it, just a general user score. We're not a critic or anything like that, just a general user score. It looks like according to that, they pretty much like the movie. But when you look at the critic score, which is the tomato meter down here where the green splotch is, 26%. Now, a movie that is rated at 26%, to me, I would think would be a really bad movie. And, but I didn't feel that way when I saw that movie. I enjoyed the movie. Now, I'm not going to say it was like the best movie I've seen that year, but it was an enjoyable movie. I had fun watching it. I didn't think it was a bad movie. Now, looking at that score, I didn't think it was a 26% recommendation style movie. There were a lot of movies, even that year, that came out that were a lot worse than that movie. But if I were to see that score before I went to see the movie, would it have clouded my judgment of the movie? Would I have not had as much fun because I would have been there knowing that it has already been reviewed not that great, and maybe it would have had some impact on how I felt about the movie as I watched it? But I think it's kind of human nature. I think a lot of times, like if you look at Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman came out, it came out on Christmas Day, and the first few reviews for Wonder Woman were favorable. A lot of people enjoyed it. It was getting good reviews. And then right after the first few reviews came out, and then like the next a day or so, that's when the slew of horrible reviews came out, one after the other. If you look at Wonder Woman 84's page right now, it's sitting right at 60%. I think it started off like 72 or something like that. It started off pretty good, but now it's just barely making the fresh meter. Is right at 60%. It's at the limit, according to the rules we was looking at earlier. But if I would have came to this site and looked at the scores, and then scrolled down and read some of the reviews, let's see what they're saying. It just feels over the top, hammy, and unearned. It doesn't feel lovingly. So if I would have came to the site and looked at that score and read some of the reviews, then I would have went into that movie knowing that, there were 40% of the people out here that saw this movie did not like it, and will that have an effect on me? I don't know. I mean, I ended up watching the movie without seeing any reviews, and I didn't like it. And to be honest with you, when I finished watching the movie and I was like, I didn't like it, it took me to the end of the movie to just finally tell myself, yo, I just don't like this movie. And when I was finished, I was like, something must be wrong with me. Let me go and check to see what everybody else is saying. Then that's when I found out everybody else was saying the same thing. But how many of those people wouldn't have been saying the same thing if the first slew of bad reviews hadn't come out first? Sometimes, you'll get a couple of people saying certain things, and then everybody else, to be a part of the crowd, will just pile on and join with everybody else, So my question to you, do reading reviews and listening to people talking about a movie or giving their thoughts on a movie, tweets or anything like that, do that have any effect on your thoughts of a movie? Like if you haven't seen the movie first and you've read all of that stuff beforehand, does that have any effect for you? I'd like to hear about that in the comments below. And while you're there, make sure you click the like button and subscribe. And that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.